All right, in this video, we'll begin the unit on mollusks and echinoderms. Echinoderms are like sea stars. Mollusks are like mollusks. And so a couple of general info about mollusks. They are the second largest phyla of animals behind arthropods. There are 90,000 living species of mollusks and 70,000 extinct species. And so this represents a lot of the life that has been on Earth. This includes everything from snails to the octopus there in front of you, to squid, to clams, oysters, all that sort of thing. And so you have very complex and you have very simple organisms in this phylum. They're represented everywhere from the tropics to the polar seas. They are aquatic, they are terrestrial, and so they're all over the place. Some of them are parasites. They're used as food. They can be used to make things like pearls, which we're familiar with. So a little bit about their body plan. Their dorsal body wall forms what's called the mantle, and you can see that on this picture. And the mantle secretes the shell, which most mollusks have a shell, either internal or external. The mantle cavity there you can see houses the gills or the lungs, dependent upon the type of organism. This representative mollusk here is it could just be anything. It's not a snail necessarily, but it kind of looks like that. But it's not. There's some things that make it not a snail, so it's just kind of a representative mollusk there. The ventral body wall is typically where you find the muscular foot, and when we hear the word foot, of course, we think of like the end of our leg has a foot on it. This is more like this is how most mollusks will move, is using their foot, and they can also use it to eat and other different functions as well. In the mouth, there is a structure called the radula, which is like a tongue that has. I mean, that picture looks like there's like it's chainsaw blades, but it's more like kind of like a scraping function for eating algae and some other, it could be other things that they eat. They have a triploblastic body, which means they have all three tissue layers, ecto, meso, and endoderm, and they have a true coelom, like all animals that we're going to talk about from here forward in this class. They have all the different kinds of muscles. So in the past, we've talked about longitudinal or circular, different kinds of muscles that one organism may have or another. Well, mollusks have all of them. And so they have more complicated muscular structure. The foot is a highly muscular structure. In some cases, you have like squid and octopi, they have very, very muscular foot. Um, they have sensory organs that aren't just there for sight and for equilibrium, like some of the other things we've talked about, but they can smell, they can taste, they can touch. And some of them have highly developed eyes as well. No asexual reproduction found in mollusks, but they do have monoecious forms as well as dioecious forms. Most of them have two kidneys that are called metanephridia or nephridium, as you see in this picture. So they, you have all over the spectrum there, depending on the complexity of the mollusk. And most of their excretory waste goes into the mantle cavity, which is interesting because with snails, their mantle cavity is over the top of their head. Gas exchange takes place in gills or lungs. They have an open circulatory system, as you can see in this picture. So the blood just kind of goes out into the space and is pumped eventually back into the heart. So just a brief walk through the classes that we're going to go over. There's Cotofovietta, which literally means tail pit. This is a very simple class. I don't want to take too much from our lecture on the classes, so I'm just going to kind of go through them as a list. We have Solenogastries. This is almost like kind of like a walk of fame or something. It's like they're being paraded in front of us before we learn something about them. Monoplacophora, which just means one plate. Polyplacophora, which means more than one plate. Scaphopoda, which means boat foot. Gastropoda, which means stomach foot. Bivalve, which means two valves. These are like two shells, like oysters and clams. These are also called pecalopoda, which means hatchet foot. And then cephalopod, which are head foot. This is like squids and octopi.